Today I have the pleasure of being joined by the one and only Eddie Hernandez of United. Eddie, thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My
Why don't
pleasure.
you introduce yourself to the audience?
My name's Eddie Hernandez. I'm the Assistant Chief Pilot for United Airlines in Orlando. I'm a 737 captain and line check pilot. Been with United for 10 years, and in my current role for just over 2 years. We opened up the Orlando base May of 2023, and so I've been in that position since day one.
First question, how does your airline balance operational efficiency with cost management? Because I know there's always trade-offs that need to be made, and I have a couple of assumptions that I want to kind of verify with you, but what really goes through your mind whenever you want to make sure you're operating the airline, not spending too much, but actually being efficient and catering to your customers and just doing everything the right way and on time?
Yeah, so United, we have our core four, which are four core pillars of how we operate and how we make decisions here at the company. They go in order by safety, caring, dependability, and efficiency, right? Mm-hmm. So everything that we do is based around those core pillars. Safety always has to be number one. So when it comes to safety, we're going to eat the cost, whatever it costs us to run a safe operation, right? So that's always not a question. Mm-hmm. From there comes about caring for our passengers, caring for our employees. Dependable, we have to run a dependable operation for our customers so they come back and fly with us. Mm-hmm. And then efficiency, we always have to watch out for the bottom line, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because we have to run an operation that makes money so that we can, it's a business, right? We want to make sure that we keep our employees employed and offer competitive wages. So when we're making decisions out during the operation, we have to balance the needs of safety and caring for our passengers and running a dependable operation versus efficiency. So I'll give you an example. Right now it's summertime, obviously, it's hot, right? Mm-hmm. And so APU usage is one of the things that the company's always looking at. So when we're at the gates, our SOP is to have our rampers connect external air and external power. That way we can shut the APU off on the jet. Every minute of fuel savings is a lot of money when you stack it up against 1,000 jets running 365 days a year. But during the summertime, that becomes a challenge, obviously. Yeah. These aircraft are hard to keep cool, sometimes with external air. Yeah. So again, this is where we have to balance safety, right? Making sure that we have safe cabin temperatures, caring for our passengers. We don't want them to get on a hot jet. So this is when we tell our pilots, we ask our pilots, hey, you make the call, right? We're always looking for that efficiency, try to shut the APU off whenever possible. Mm-hmm. But when it's not possible, then go ahead and run the APU. So it's just kind of having that balancing act of always looking for the bottom line, looking for opportunities, even if it's a couple of minutes where we shut the APU down, again, we're saving fuel. But at the same time, we're not going to do it to the detriment of our safety standards and also taking care of our customers and our co-workers.
Yeah, for sure. So it's just during the summer, the APU usage just bring it back a tad whenever you don't need it on, or if there's no passengers on board, or have the cabin crew shut the windows, exactly. less light in. And whenever you're running around this office, what is really just at the top of your mind? Let's say it's a super busy day, and whenever it's just chaos around here, what is number one in your mind?
So I see my job as to support our pilots, right? Mm-hmm. That's my number one job. Again, it goes to our core four principles. So obviously making sure that we're all running a safe operation, but number two is caring. So caring for the pilots that I lead. So we have about 400 pilots in the base, and it can be busy at times. And so when it's chaotic, when there's which summertime usually is chaotic because of weather, full flights, busy flight schedule. So that's when it's more important, when things start falling off the rails, that I'm here to support the pilots. We have a whole team here of support staff that is here to support the pilots as well. And so that's my number one thing, is making sure that our pilots feel like they're supported, that they can come to me if they have issues, if they have questions, if the operation isn't running right and nobody's listening to them, then I'm the one that they know that they can come to and listen to, so that we can make sure that the operation continues down that trajectory of safety in the eyes of the pilots. Right, because if our pilots feel like they're supported, that they've got a chief pilot's office is backing them up, then they're going to take care of our passengers, they're going to take care of our crew members, and they're going to keep the operation running.
Makes sense. Good. You're saying that nobody's listening to them. Is it like the cabin crew that they're having conflicts with, the ground crew? Who would it be?
And it's sometimes what happens in the operation is we've got different forces competing against each other, right? We've got our airport operations staff. That's our customer service representatives, our gate agents, our ramp crew, right? Their job is to get the people on the aircraft and try to get the aircraft pushed back on time, right? And then we also have the network operations center who monitors the whole picture, the whole big picture. They've got the weather picture, they've got airport closure picture, they've got the picture of where our passengers are connecting and so forth. So they're trying to run that dependability and efficiency model of the airline. Sometimes our pilots, though, they've got other information such as air traffic control status, ATC delays, wheels up times, and sometimes that information doesn't get communicated correctly to airport operations. Most of the time it does, but sometimes it does not. And they've got the pulse on what's going on with ATC, right? We're the ones talking to ATC. And so sometimes when issues like that happens, or maybe a maintenance issue where there's a proper legal deferral for something on an aircraft, but the pilot says, yeah, time out, it might be legal, but in this instance, I don't feel it's safe. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop the brakes here. I'm going to make my point, and obviously, like I said, safety's got to be number one. So again, giving examples, APU. Maybe it's it's legal for us to defer an APU, but maybe on a hot day when you're expecting your traffic control delays, it might not be the safest action for us to actually operate that flight, especially if you're on a taxiway for an hour or two waiting for air traffic control clearance to take off.
For sure.
Same thing with our airport operations staff. They might not be aware that there's an ATC delay, right? All they know is that they got to get this flight out because there's another airplane that's coming in to use that gate. So our pilots really help. They're very useful in making sure that they're running the operation safely, right? Because our pilots have control of the aircraft. The pilot in command is going to be always the one that's going to make that ultimate decision. And sometimes when those wires get crossed, not all the time, but we're here to support them when somebody can't see where the pilot's coming from in making these decisions.
For sure. So right now what I'm seeing is just a system of checks and balances. These guys want this department wants this, right? But they may not be. Everybody's safety oriented, but that may not be what they're thinking of all the time. But pilots, that's. They're basically the bus drivers, right? We decide if we go or not, right? We have to be thinking of safety at all times, right? And so really that balance, I'm seeing that it really just comes naturally just because of polarizing desires, right? Safety and efficiency, right? Now, one thing one assumption that I have that I just want to verify with you is that when I was just reading the textbook or just off what I've been hearing from you, I feel like the biggest factor to a smooth operation is on-time performance, right? Because being late can basically have a domino effect on the entire system and can make everybody run around like headless chickens, and you might need somebody like yourself to just kind of calm everybody down. So I feel like how important is on-time performance to you? Because I know safety is very important, but on-time performance, I'm assuming probably comes second, right?
Yeah, so in our core 4 principles, like I said, it's safety, caring, dependability, and efficiency. So on time is number 3, dependability, right? Yeah. And we want to make sure that we operate our flights on time, especially for like a large network carrier like us. We have a lot of passengers who are connecting, so we want to make sure that they get on their connecting flights. So that's why we want to run an on-time operation. A lot of our big busy hubs like Chicago, Newark, Houston, we also time it where as soon as one flight leaves from the gate, there's another flight coming in, right? So again, running a dependable operation means that all of those cogs are fitting in well because we've got gate usage constraints, we've got connecting flights, we've got CCO issues or legality issues for our pilots, right? We build them schedules, pilots and flight attendants, we build them schedules to take into account FAR 117 regulations, duty day and block time for each day. And so again, that's another cog in the wheel there, making sure that everything goes as on time as possible, because like you said, once you start to not go on time, once you start to fall off that schedule, then it's a domino effect and it keeps building, and it can be hard to recover from that. So again, dependability is important to us after we balance the safety and caring factor.
For sure, 100%, yeah. So safety, customer service, dependability, and efficiency, right? And those are core 4, right?
Core 4, correct.
That's awesome. Logistics, right? An airline is probably the most complex logistics operation known to man, right? So many moving parts. So what's the most challenging logistical, or what logistical problem kind of gives you just keeps you up and not like, man, I know tomorrow this thing's coming in, or whatever's gonna happen, this is really just gonna make my job 10 times harder?
Yeah, I guess it's probably the unknown. Again, like summertime, it's just we've got a plan. We meet before summertime to assess our summer readiness, and we have a plan going forward that you just don't know the unknown, right?
Yeah.
So when the unknown happens, yesterday we had weather events across 2 or 3 of our hubs, right? So that causes disruptions. That causes scheduling disruptions for our pilots also and our passengers. And sometimes that means that our pilots aren't going home on the day that they were supposed to go home to, right?
Yeah.
So it creates a lot of logistical challenges. Let's say, for example, you're scheduled to work a 4-day trip, and then you're going into your day off, and it's your kid's birthday, or you're going to go to some family event, and now because of scheduling issues, weather issues, you weren't able to make it back to your home base. Now you're stuck out somewhere else, right? So that creates logistical issues, and we try to work with our pilots, but that's also part of the business, right? You can't get into your final destination because of weather. We know that's gonna happen, but it's just the unknowns of the operation. As much as we try to plan for them, they're gonna happen. Give you an example of last year when there was the CrowdStrike issue.
Yeah.
Right. We prepared for situations like that. We've learned in the past from incidents like that, and we've put into practices ways to kind of recover from big operational disruptions like that. So planning is a big part of it, and it helped us because we were able to, obviously CrowdStrike impacted us. It impacted us for about a day, but we were able to recover quickly because of lessons learned from previous instances like that where we were expecting the unexpected.
Gotcha. I'm not familiar with CrowdStrike. What is that?
That was last summer. CrowdStrike is one of those the security software that prevents intrusion into IT systems, and that failed. So a lot of computer systems at different airlines just were locked up and were not working. So it caused massive cancellations.
Wait, was this in 2023?
This was 2024, during the summer 2024.
Okay, I got you. So it's not related to the Southwest meltdown.
Well,
is it similar?
Well, Southwest actually did good that year because their IT system is a little bit less
were
developed than other
okay.
airlines, but Delta had a hard time recovering from CrowdStrike.
I gotcha. Makes sense. I saw in an interview the CEO, Scott Kirby, he said by far our biggest issue outside of weather, what you said, unknown is weather, operationally is air traffic control. He mentioned that there was an actual shortage of air traffic controllers. Now, how big of an issue is that for you and your pilots on a daily basis?
It's huge, especially down here in Florida. Jacksonville Center is chronically understaffed. So on any number of days, you'll see air traffic control delays for aircraft just transiting the Jacksonville Center. They might not be flying into one of the Florida airports, but they're just transiting that corridor, the northern part of the Florida Peninsula. And so that causes delays, right?
Yeah.
And so again, now you're having issues with dependability for our passengers. We're having issues with scheduling for our pilots and our flight attendants. And then one of our biggest hubs too, Newark, has been affected by staffing shortages as well. The good thing is that there's relief on the horizon. I participate in chief pilots meetings here in Orlando, and we get to interact with our counterparts at the FAA control tower and the TRACON. And so that's one of the things that we discuss also is their staffing, right? So there was the FAA bill that was passed last year that was going to offer some relief so that they can hire new controllers. It opened up more positions here in Orlando for both the tower and the TRACON. So they're hiring for those positions. The downside is that it takes a controller, or it takes a new hire approximately 2 years to be fully certified. So even though they've got the funding for it and they're starting to hire into those positions, to fully certify somebody can take up to 2 years. But at least relief is coming. I think it's coming to Jacksonville Center also. It's coming to Newark. It's just going to take a little bit of time for us to get caught up there.
And also with NextGen is coming. How I know CPDLC is being implemented like in the United States. I know crossing the pond, it's a lot more used.
Yeah.
But how much have you guys started using stuff like CPDLC on transcons from here to Seattle or to California or wherever?
We use it quite a bit. So most of our aircraft are equipped with CPDLC. I'm a 737 pilot, and most of our 737 aircraft are equipped with CPDLC, and it's great. It cuts down on the frequency congestion quite a bit. Because we just get the next frequency handoff, or we get a proceed direct to or climb and maintain instruction on CPDLC, right? So that just decreases the amount of radio clutter on the frequency, so it's helped out a lot. I'd like to see us move a little bit further along with the CPDLC project. so that like when we go oceanic, we can make requests for different altitudes or for vectors around weather and that kind of stuff. And so I'd like for us to be able to move on to the second phase of CPDLC where we can make those requests to the controller. Right now, we still have to make those requests via voice to the controller. But I think with time and with training and with resources, we'll get to that point.
I got you. Now, I know there's no actual text bubbles that's popping up. Do you guys ever just send a message and then just like, I wonder when they're gonna, because they can't just say, all right, they can't just type standby,
yeah,
right? Or do they ever just type standby, or what do they do? Is there like a waiting process and like, oh, okay, they haven't responded yet. Let me just key up the mic.
Yeah, we can request altitude changes and we'll get a standby response if they can't get to it. But there's limitations, like I said, to CPDLC right now. We can't send free text messages. So if I'm flying domestically and I see weather and I want to request an offset to the left or to the right, of course, I still have to key up the mic and do that.
Okay.
Whereas oceanic, you can make that request.
Yeah, for sure. Makes sense. I got you. Now, talking about on-time performance, right? Now, how much of a reliance are you guys putting on the regional jets, to perform on time? Because those guys are whole other companies operating under the United brand. How big of a factor are they to your 737 or your narrow body and wide body operations? Because I'd imagine if one regional jet's late, then and the other three that are supposed to fill up the narrow body or the wide body come on time, but it's just that one didn't. How big of a deal is that to you guys?
Well, it's a huge deal. Again, connectivity of our passengers is important, right? So the regional jets are usually feeding mainline jets from some of the smaller stations. Okay. And sometimes it's less service to some of those smaller stations, right? So I'll give you Orlando as an example. We have about 10 daily flights to Newark. So if one flight, passengers doesn't get on one flight or one of those flights is late, we can always accommodate our passengers on another flight to get them to their destination on time. But on a regional jet, you might have a once-a-day service or twice-a-day service to some of these cities. So it's important that those flights get out on time to connect our passengers to their final destination. One of the things we have been doing, though, is we've been increasing our mainline fleets so that we can reduce our reliance on regional aircraft. There's still, from what I understand, regional aircraft are always going to play a pivotal role in our airline because we can't fly a 737 in some of the smaller cities, right? We're not going to fill them up, so we need to be able to provide service to the smaller cities. But where we have been able to, we have increased our market share by bringing in larger aircraft like the Airbus and the 737. I think one of the prime examples is 8-10 years ago between Atlanta and Newark, we used to fly a lot of RJs, and that really is a mainline market. So we've been reducing the number of RJs flying between Atlanta and Newark and making it all mainline so that we've got more market share in those bigger cities.
And those RJs, were they being operated by United, like the actual company, or was it an actual subsidiary?
It's it's our partners.
Partners. Okay, makes sense. Okay, I gotcha. They're definitely really important because you can't extract every cent out of every corner of the U.S. without regional jets. What is a bigger deal, a 737 being late or 777 being late?
Late is late, right? Because obviously we don't want to have misconnects and we want to get our passengers to their destination. But just in sheer volume, a 777, especially our high density aircraft, you're talking about 360 seats. So a delay of that is going to be double the amount of passengers that the 737 carries. So again, you're just doubling the effect of being tardy.
Okay, I guess so. Doubling the effect on the passenger side and customer experience side, but I feel like operationally, 777 being late or departing late isn't as big of a deal because usually those trips are a lot longer. And I'm assuming you guys build a lot more buffer on either end on the actual flight schedule. So if they depart like an hour or two, which still obviously that is late, unacceptable. If they depart 1 or 2 hours late, it's not the biggest deal in the world, or it's not as big of a deal as like a narrow body being late, right? Operationally.
Yes and no. We do fly a lot of our wide body aircraft domestically, like the 777, the high density configuration. That's our people mover here domestically. It moves between the hubs. We see it here in Orlando seasonally also too. When we have high demand, that 777 flies to Chicago, flies to Denver. So again, we're moving passengers domestically on the 777, and so they're connecting on to maybe international destinations or to other smaller cities. And so the bigger passenger spectrum there, you've got a lot more passengers that might potentially miss their connections. When you're talking international, though, yeah, there's instances too where, especially on the very ultra long haul routes, our duty day window is a lot shorter when you're flying 14, 16, 18 hours. So a delay on those might make your crew go illegal just because there's those flight times are so long. There's not a lot of wiggle room there for crew legality reasons.
Okay, makes sense. I gotcha. Yeah, so I guess both are a big deal because late is just unacceptable. I gotcha. Yeah, because I was like, I knew there were wide body domestic flights, but I never. Is it more rare to see just a wide body flight domestically?
It's more rare, yeah. Most of our wide bodies fly.
Just in high season, I'm assuming?
Yeah, but we do have, like I said, we do have some of our high density aircraft. We also have our Transcon premium service from Newark to San Francisco and Los Angeles is flying wide body aircraft. Right, those are our big routes where we have a lot of passengers traveling for us. They want that premium service, and so we use our wide body aircraft to meet that service. So we do use our wide bodies, like I said, for a lot of domestic feed also. Probably a big percentage of the wide body flying is international, transoceanic, but the wide body plays a big role in our domestic structure as well.
I gotcha. Yeah, so it's whenever those bougie passengers want to come aboard, you guys utilize that 777 just to a slightly better experience.
Exactly.
Gotcha, makes sense. Now, how do fuel prices and supply chain issues influence your flight scheduling and routing decisions? Because I feel like during COVID, obviously you guys had to cut down. I know revenues were down 99%. You guys predicted at first 70%, but they were down even more than that. And so I'm assuming you guys have to cut, along with everybody else, they had to cut a bunch of flights. Just stop flying altogether. But in those outside of COVID, in those low seasons, are you personally ever having to make we can't be flying this route 5 times a week, I have to cut back down like 3, 2, even 1?
Yeah, and so that's probably outside of my scope, but I do know that the company adjusts our schedule seasonally. What's good about being a large network carrier that kind of flies, we fly to all 4 corners of the world is like once we get out of our summer season and our international traffic starts to slow down, we can shift some of that capacity to other parts of the world, such as Australia, who starts going into their summer season. So we've got the ability to shift aircraft around to meet seasonal demand, but we also take advantage of it. We do draw down our schedule during periods of lower travel. That's when we can start doing some bigger projects on aircraft, like heavy checks. It's also when we take advantage in flight operations of doing most of our training, our recurrent training, or our new hire training. Right now during the summertime, we don't do a lot of training because we need all hands on deck right now to meet the summer schedule. Does that flying, our block hours draw down? That's also when we can take advantage. We can bring those pilots back to the flight training center, have them do their recurrent training. When we bring in new hires to start training as well, so that we have those resources to match the needs.
I got you. And I know you said this was out of your scope, but are there like any routes that you're most worried about that if you kind of cut down on that flying, somebody else might come in, you might lose market share, or big United, big boys, big guys in town, they're always, if they leave, they can always just come back anytime they want.
Yeah, I think it's a given. There's a lot of routes that are seasonal. We know they're seasonal, and so we have no issues pulling back. A lot of our seasonal summer routes. We're always going to fly to Italy, so we're always going to fly to Rome, we're always going to fly to Milan. But some of the other secondary markets in Italy, talking about Naples, talking about maybe Palermo, those are summer-only destinations, right? Probably some people go there during the wintertime, but we know that the draw to those destinations is during the summertime. So it makes sense financially for us to pull back from those routes during the low season instead of losing money. Because we can always come back when the season starts back up again. We've already got that presence there, and so people know that we fly there. So it's just makes sense for us naturally to draw back when demand goes down, and when demand comes back up, we're there, we're ready to go.
I gotcha. Now, this maybe a kind of odd, which since airlines' margins are so thin, right? Are you guys ever willing to lose money on certain routes just to maintain market share?
Yeah, and again, it's probably outside of my scope, but I'm sure that some of our routes that we want to have a presence there, right? So take for example London, where we have slots in London. We want to make sure that we keep our slots, and so we have to meet obligations to fly so many flights between the U.S. and London. And so at times we may lose some money, but in the big scope of things or in the big picture, it's important for us to make sure that we keep all of those slots. So during high times, we're operating max performance and efficiency to London.
Yeah, cool. That's the Heathrow, right?
Yeah.
I heard that's a nightmare. Yeah, I gotcha. Leadership and management. Now, this past January, we saw tragic accidents happen, like which we haven't seen in 15 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
How has your leadership style evolved in response to changes in the American aviation perspective on safety? Like, how are you more safety oriented, right? What are you really thinking as a result of those crashes, like the one for Endeavor? How have these changes in our industry changed your leadership style?
Whenever something happens, it's a reminder to those of us in leadership positions to advocate for complacency or non-complacency in the flight deck.
Yeah.
As you go about your day as a pilot, day after day, you keep doing the same thing. It becomes monotonous at times.
Yeah.
But it's important to remind our pilots and remind myself too when I go flying to not become complacent, right?
Mm-hmm.
To make sure we're following SOP, to make sure that our CRM is up to par, that the person that you're flying with has the same mental model that you're having.
Mm-hmm.
So every time something like that happens, it's just a good reminder to not become complacent. The accident that happened out in DCA Airport, again, that was just another reminder, right?
Yeah,
that
for sure.
we always have to have our eyes outside, looking for other traffic. You always have to be listening on the frequency. Because you can put yourself in their shoes, and there's days when maybe you became complacent and you became tired, and you can certainly fall into that trap. So it's just a good reminder. Again, like I said, complacency seems to be probably the number one thing that I fear. When I think about maybe what keeps me up at night, or what do I think about? I want to, like I said, we want to run a safe operation. I don't want to see anybody get hurt. I don't want to see us having an accident or incident here at the company.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, it's important that we don't fall into that trap of complacency. We've got really good training here, good training programs. Our safety systems, they start trapping some of the errors or some of the SOP non-compliance. And so that's when we start training to make sure that we address those issues. And so that's a really good thing, though. A good feeling for me is that we have systems to trap those errors. We can see on line checks where maybe crews are forgetting about an SOP, and we can bring that back into the forefront of training so that we keep everybody kind of complacent and keep that SOP non-compliance in line. It's just a testament to what a strong safety culture and a strong safety reporting system plays in a role to kind of try to trap those errors so that it doesn't become an accident.
I gotcha, yeah. And what strategies do you use to kind of maintain motivation and during low times or during disruptions, like you said, you mentioned last year that IT disruption? Are you ever just kind of using that, hey guys, as long as people are safe, passengers are getting to live another day, no matter really what happens, no matter what our shareholders say, what our stock, where our stock goes, as long as people are alive, everything's going to be fine. You kind of use that strategy to kind of calm people down in times of turmoil.
Yeah, the best thing that we can do is just to go out there and do our job, do it well, do it safely. There's going to be a lot of distractions over there, or there's going to be a lot of external distractions, and we just have to keep the main thing the main thing. As one of our former leaders used to say at the company, keep the main thing, right? Our job as pilots is to fly the airplane, fly it safely, get our passengers from point A to B. So just kind of put those distractions behind you and focus on the job ahead.
Yep, 100%. Now, developing leadership within the company, right? United is invest heavily in its own people with United AVA, Calibre, and I'm pretty sure Navigate is the other one for dispatchers. Right. So how do you guys develop leadership talent within your airline?
That's a great question. And so speaking for flight operations itself, we've got a number of avenues where pilot can move up the chain through leadership. We have a special assignment program. That's where a line pilot can apply for a special assignment role. And so we take that pilot off the line for a month. It could be more, usually for a month at a time. And they get a taste of what it's like to be in another position outside of the line flying.
Makes sense.
Here in the Chief Pilot's office, we have special assignment roles as well. So prior to opening up Orlando as a base, I was based in Newark,
Mm-hmm.
and so I stepped into one of those special assignment roles at the Newark Chief Pilot's Office just so that I could get a taste of what it's like to be in an office. And you get to see, just like you do in the flight deck, you get to see what good captains do, and then you emulate those qualities. You might also get to see what bad captains do, right? And you're like, well, I don't want to be that kind of captain.
Yeah, for sure.
And so working in a special assignment role, it gives you an opportunity to work with some of the leaders in the base,
Mm-hmm.
or some of the leaders in other departments, such as maybe flight training, flight safety, flight test, digital technologies. We've got all sorts of special assignment roles out there. But you take a step away from the line, you start working on these special assignment projects, and then you kind of take a peek behind the curtain and see how you can develop your own personal style and see if that's something that you want to do. Some people step out of the line. They do special assignment roles. They're like, this is cool, but it's not for me. And other people are like, oh, this is very cool. I like this. I like being able to foster, work as a team, foster a team environment,
Mm-hmm.
or I like being able to support a group of people, or I like to be able to set the policy, SOP, and the tone. So that we can bring a department or bring this group up to where it needs to be. So that's one of the ways that we build kind of that leadership role.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there you move on to, once you move into a leadership role, we've got education classes, we've got mentoring programs. So I do a mentoring program where people who are who are also trying to find mentorship and leadership, they can reach out to senior leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So they can kind of start building their pathway to get to where they want to be.
For sure, I gotcha. And now your interns, how do you guys develop them? Or do you guys just expose them to the flight operations, or do you guys try to put them in leadership positions within the company, or like kind of mini leadership positions within the company, just kind of test where they're at, or kind of help them become better versions of themselves?
I see it as a development position. I love the internship program because you're bringing somebody who maybe has never worked in an office before, or somebody who doesn't know what really goes on behind the scenes, right? Especially with the flight operations internship. We get people who've got their flight training on, but they really don't know what life at an airline is like.
Yeah.
So we are exposing these our interns to life at an airline. We're also giving them a peek behind the scenes, what it means to be compassionate and supportive to the people that are on your team that you lead.
Yeah, for sure.
What it means to put in hard work, right? What it means to work as a team also. Like I said, a lot of people have never worked in a corporate environment before when they're coming into internships. So it's an opportunity to develop those skills, working together as a team, communicating, following up on projects. So it's just a good development tool. For me, I personally don't see it as an opportunity to test them on their leadership skills. It's just an opportunity for them to just soak it all in and then develop their own leadership styles after their internship experience.
For sure, I gotcha. And going back to those special assignment roles, it's really interesting. Can you give me an example? Do they just kind of take a step back and maybe they go into an instructor role in the sim, or maybe they go into something on the computer? Is it really it just varies?
It varies, yeah. We actually number one, all of our instructors are line pilots, and they choose to apply for an instructor position, and they're full-time instructors.
Mm-hmm.
Special assignment roles can vary throughout the company. Like I said, we've got special assignment roles at the Chief Pilot Office.
Mm-hmm.
Here I have a special assignment pilot every month that comes in, and they just kind of learn what we do at the Chief Pilot's Office, and then they're a supporting role to our pilots. So when a pilot calls in, they have a question maybe that's pilot specific, where our staff, our team can't maybe answer that question. At least we've got a pilot here who can help them with that answer. We've also got special assignment roles at flight safety, so they help us do flight safety investigations. We've got roles at flight tests, so flight test has a whole bunch of special projects. Our flight test department not only does flight testing, they also test new technology for the flight deck. We've got an electronic flight bag, which is an iPad with a whole bunch of United specific apps. So a lot of times we're developing new apps. They're the ones that are testing that. They're the ones that are developing that. Developing our scheduling software. We recently changed our scheduling software. We updated it. It's called CCS. It was the original software. It's now called CCS Plus. Think about CCS used to be kind of like a DOS-based system. It wasn't DOS-based, but I'm just trying to draw a comparison. And now CCS Plus is more user-friendly with a graphical user interface that kind of moves us forward to where we should be now. And so a lot of times that requires special assignment pilots to come off the line and help our digital technology team be like, well, from a pilot's perspective, we need this software to be able to do this.
Makes sense.
We've got special assignment pilots in all sorts of company roles like that, and it's what's really good is maybe if you have a special talent, like maybe if programming was something that was a trait that you like to do in college or something that you do part-time, then you can use those skills and apply them to special assignment roles within the company.
Do you guys ever have pilots do any social media stuff? Because I know United by far is the best social media out of anyone. To be honest, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, some all just saying United ads or United videos. Do you guys ever have pilots kind of doing social media stuff, or is that a little iffy? Like, oh, these guys are supposed to be flying the plane when they're doing the phone.
So we do have some of our pilot influencers. Some pilot influencers that work here at United. And I think we've embraced them. We've kind of given them guidance, the do's and don'ts. And our social media team does reach out to them and interacts with them. And I know some of those pilots who are social media influencers, they do work with our social media team where possible.
I got you, like Swain Martin, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You ever met him?
I have not met him in person, not yet.
Gotcha, yeah. I watch his videos; they're really good.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. So regulatory and safety compliance, right? Really, as the assistant chief pilot and the chief pilot, you guys are just making sure that the pilots are just following all the rules, being safe, but also being legal at the same time, right? Now, give me some examples of of the most challenging FAA or ICAO regulations that your airline has to comply with, and how do you manage them?
A good question. It's just such a complex operation, especially when we're going overseas. And some of the SOPs or some of the ICAO rules are different from what pilots are used to.
Yeah.
And so again, that just comes back to complacency and trying to make our pilots stay on top of those issues, right? Reading the guidance that's in our manuals so that they're compliant with NASA regulations or ICAO regulations where they differ from regular FAA regulations. And so there's just a lot of information out there. And so a lot of times we just need to make sure that we read the books, right? Because all that information is in there. Just knowing where to find it, though, that can sometimes be challenging because there is so much information to know. And so making sure that we provide that in a format that's easily accessible, that can be a challenge sometimes.
That makes sense. I'm like, no, to be honest, finding the information has become a lot easier because I used to just do Control F on my keyboard and then just try to find it and just spend like 10 minutes. But now I just plug in the PDF into ChatGPT and then I say, hey, where is this? And it just tells me the exact same page. I also use it just as a study tool just because, AI, I'm going to ask you some questions about AI here in a bit, but a lot of times it's just garbage in, garbage out. And so you need to kind of give it good information in so it can kind of give you reliable output, right?
Right.
Now, obviously, regulations are, always evolving. Do you have a source or someone in the office that says, hey, chief, there's this new regulation that FAA just dropped, you got to pay attention to this? Is there somebody like that, or are you just going home, just kind of looking at your form, hey, did they add anything new in there, or what?
Yeah, so at the Chief Pilot's Office, believe it or not, we don't get too involved with FARs. That goes more to our flight standards team, our flight training center, flight standards, and maybe even flight safety too. They're the ones that develop the SOP, they develop the SOP. So whenever there's FAR changes or ICAO changes, they change the SOP in our flight manual or our flight operations manual or flight manual or our worldwide operations manual to adjust those changes.
I forgot you guys have op specs. So I was like, you guys aren't just open up the FAR AM. So that's the rule book right there.
That's a rule book right there.
Because that's just FAA approved. And then after that, if you need to reference them, assuming you go to the FAR AM, right? Yeah, I gotcha. Now, how does your team ensure safety culture across all operational levels? Because pilots, telling them safety, it's not the hardest thing because they've been getting hammered about safety since day one of private, right? And so communicating safety to your pilots is probably not the hardest thing in the world because that's also a hiring criteria, right? Or for you guys, because are these guys safe? Do you know how to fly a plane? But are they safe pilots? And then after that, are they good in the cockpit? Do they have good personalities that mix with our culture and all that stuff? But down at the lower levels, like on the ramp, right? I work on the ramp at Signature, and I have a unique perspective on safety. But the guys that are just off the street, new hires they just want a job, right? How do you communicate safety to them? Do you guys just kind of use the doom and gloom method or something like that with the other departments?
Yeah, I think safety has to be in our DNA. So doom and gloom probably isn't gonna cut it.
Yeah.
We just have to make sure that it's the primary objective, right? And everything that we do in safety, because if you're unsafe, it could lead to loss of life, and so we don't want to have that happen. So it's just constant reminders to people. We don't want to over inundate them, but at the same time we want to make sure that we're reminding people about our safety culture. And it comes to maybe just something simple like us having safety meetings once a month, which we do here on a local level at the base. We identify trends by doing observations. We do the same thing in flight operations. We do LOSAs, which are line operational safety observations. So we're just identifying trends where people are maybe falling outside of that spectrum of the safe envelope. We collect that information and then we address those issues by coming back to our work groups.
Do you guys encourage pilots to just make voluntary safety reports and just kind of, hey, as long as it's something not outrageous? Because I've heard my mentor, he's a captain American, he was like, look, some pilots crash a plane or even dent a wing or something, and they don't get fired afterwards. And so I feel like that culture, and I'm not sure how it is at United, but kind of having that, hey, as long as it's something not extremely outrageous, really nothing, your career is pretty safe with us. How do you guys encourage them to kind of make those voluntary safety reports?
Yeah, our flight safety reporting is crucial to our operation. So we've got a culture of making sure that our pilots feel comfortable reporting safety incidents. And so it's important for us that we don't act negatively on those safety reports. We want to encourage all of those safety reports, whether it's reporting yourself for violating a safety rule or identifying a safety trend that needs to be actioned on, right? Obviously, if it's intentional noncompliance, that's a different subject, and that's a different story. But people make mistakes. We're only human. I've made mistakes, right? And so I feel comfortable reporting that mistake. Sometimes it might result in a flight safety investigation, but that's not a punitive thing. What we're doing is we're trying to make sure that when we do a flight safety investigation over an incident, that we provide that crew with the tools and resources to make sure that that doesn't happen again, right? And we collect all of this data so that we know what the current trends are, and we can address those trends through training and through safety audits.
I gotcha. I'm assuming you guys use software. I'm assuming you guys use ETQ Reliance, right, to kind of get all that information consolidated into one area and just kind of see all the numbers and all the lines, see where it's trending, right? Have you guys implemented AI into those softwares? Because beforehand it was just data software, data collection, but now you actually have an artificial intelligence kind of looking at it, so it's kind of like a third set of eyes.
Yeah.
Have you guys implemented that yet?
I can't answer that question specifically because I'm not certain. I know that we are cautiously using AI to help us with some of our work projects. I don't know if it's been integrated with our safety reporting systems yet. I can tell you from my perspective here at the Chief Pilot's Office, sometimes we'll use it as a tool for contract interpretation. Our United Pilot Agreement is very lengthy, but that's the contract between pilots and the company.
Yeah.
And so when questions come up, I use it as a tool just so I can kind of find the section of the contract.
For sure.
I don't use it to give me the answer, but at least I can zero in on where that section of the contract is, and I can make my own interpretation from there. But that's probably as much as I know about how it's being used company-wide.
And those softwares, are you guys kind of inputting like where the pilot's landing on average in the first in the touchdown zone? Are they landing a little short, in the middle, or in the end? Are you guys kind of using that kind of data just to kind of see where the average pilot is trending and kind of making corrective action off that?
Yes, so we have FOCA data, which is the one that reports on all of those parameters. I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, we were noticing that our rate of unstabilized approaches was increasing. So that became kind of a focus for us in training. So we were, and we updated our SOP guidance. We put in some gates, the 1,500-foot gates, the 1,000-foot gate, the 500-foot gate, so that we had actions to do each of those gates. And if we were not within parameters, then that should be an automatic go-around. And so by identifying that information off of our FOQA data, we made it a target for training and for reworking our SOPs to bring those rates of unstabilized approaches down. And we use that data quite a lot. Another example is we've been recently noticing that, for example, landing in San Diego, runway 27, a lot of times those landings can be a little bit past where they should be, past the threshold. So we're analyzing that, focusing on that, recommending that on 737 fleet pilots perform a flaps 40 landing versus a flaps 30 landing, because that greatly improves the stop or the landing distance on the side.
You just want to get a good look at the in and out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I gotcha. And how do you guys quantify that? I know the landing distance, that's pretty easy to quantify, but how do you guys quantify like stuff like safety reporting? Is it just the number of safety reports, or is it like you look at the safety report and then kind of give it a number and then just kind of go from there?
Yeah, so I think I'm pretty certain that we have a very robust safety culture here, because when we compare the number of reports that we as a company file compared to other companies, we are far and above where a lot of other airlines are. So like I said, again, that's very important to us that we have that strong safety culture where our pilots and everybody at the company feels comfortable reporting safety issues, and we see that just based on the numbers comparing us versus our competitors.
I gotcha. Now, ATQ Reliance, is this just one-stop shop for all data, United, and then just puts it into one place? That's really what it is, or is it just a safety thing?
Yeah, so all of the different departments here at the company, you've got flight operations, in-flight, tech ops, airport ops, they all have their own ETQ or their own flight safety reporting system that it all gets processed through.
I gotcha. So what technological innovations have recently improved your airline's performance and customer experience?
I think United always strives to use technology to help out communications with our passengers. So our United app is constantly evolving to provide updates and communication to our passengers, especially when there's delays, cancellations. We've got technology to provide rebooking automatically. We've also got technology where our passengers can talk to a customer service representative right from their phone instead of standing in a long line. And we're looking at AI to kind of help us with those aspects too. See how we can leverage AI to improve the passenger experience.
Makes sense. And you guys, I know you guys are trying to fill a void in the market with Boom Supersonic. I'm assuming it's probably going to be a little more premium, but because it's more of a it's more of a time machine service. Get from New York to London in like 3 hours or however long. That's really what I like about United. You guys are also investing in the eVTOL with Archer. Number two, how does your airline approach automation, and what areas are most impacted? I'm assuming crew scheduling, you said AI is a little iffy, but especially with crew scheduling with the human factor is a little more nuanced. So you guys just really hold back on AI use or automation use whenever scheduling crews together. But what other places are you guys implementing automation?
I think I was at a meeting a couple months ago, or a conference a couple months ago, when we were asked to change the unchangeable, right? Like, what can we do to change the unchangeable? An example was summertime or anytime when there's lightning outside, the ramp closes for safety reasons, right? But is there any way that we can change our processes, automate things, so that we can continue to still run an operation when there's inclement weather without using personnel to be out on the ramp? So we're looking at automation to help us out in places where maybe we don't want to put people at risk, but can we send out some kind of robotic out there to push the aircraft off the gate or to take bags off the gate? So it's something that our company looks at. We're like you said, we're looking at the future. We're looking at boom supersonic aircraft, eVTOL aircraft. We're looking at sustainable aviation fuels, and we're looking at ways to automate other processes, not to replace workers, but just to increase our dependability, increase our safety, so that we can keep people out of harm's way, or so that we can improve processes that help out our customers.
Yeah, because I know Scott Kirby is United is probably one of the biggest contributors to this the SAF market, because you guys have invested $100 million into a bunch of startups, and just basically building a whole industry from scratch. So that's really admirable. Now, brand and customer service, right? You wanted you said safety and then then the second one is
caring.
caring, right? So customer service, basically.
Yeah.
Now, what measures do you use to evaluate customer satisfaction, and if those satisfaction metrics aren't met, or if there's negative publicity, how do you react to that? And is there a difference in the way customers behave post-pandemic?
Yeah, so we use a Net Promoter Score, which is something that's very important to us. This way we can judge how passengers feel about us after they fly on us, right? The Net Promoter Score can drill in on several aspects. It can drill in on the airport experience, on the aircraft experience, our in-flight team experience, airport operations experience, and also our flight ops experience. So I can look up the data and I can see how our passengers feel about the pilots who operate their flight out of Orlando. And for us in flight ops, it really means communicating to our passengers, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Did the pilot come out and explain why there was a delay? Did the pilot maybe make an announcement from the front of the cabin welcoming people in? Did the pilots engage maybe with our customers? Did they hand out, we have plastic wings we hand out to kids when we interact with kids, when we bring up kids or adults up into the flight deck and show them the flight deck before departure. That makes people feel good about flying in general, feel good about flying with United. So that increases our Net Promoter Score. So we do use that extensively, and again, it's data collection where we see that our Net Promoter Score is falling, where we see detractors.
For sure.
Then we try to make changes there to adjust those detractors to make the customer experience even better.
Gotcha. We're coming up on the home stretch. We're really close.
Okay.
4 more questions.
Okay.
So really, this question is a little odd, especially with United, because you guys are the big dogs. Everybody wants to be at United, right?
Yeah.
What's your biggest challenge in recruiting and retaining skilled aviation professionals, right? And how do you support them in their upskilling, right? Have you guys introduced VR goggles? Because I know Microsoft Flight Sim, a lot of interview prep companies, they go on Microsoft Flight Simulator and then just go over all the different profiles in a 7.3 or whatever. Have you guys implemented actual video game type technology to kind of like maybe use at home, like a VR goggle, and kind of go through all the motions and that kind of stuff?
I think what's challenging is that we have to work within the bounds of our AQP training program and what the FAA will allow us to do and won't allow us to do. That's not to say that we don't look at some of this technology. We recently got FMS trainers, that new pilots to the company can go use, so they can get more hands-on experience with the FMS. But we are looking, obviously at the future and making sure that we stay on top of the technology. But just keeping pilots engaged. We think what we want to make sure is we offer is a good place to work, where pilots and everybody feels that they're working at a company where they're cared for, where they're valued as individuals.
For sure.
And so that's how we build that long-term career here at United, is by making sure that it's a place where people want to work and they're proud of where they work.
Makes sense. Awesome. Now, crisis and risk management, right? COVID-19, it's probably reshaped how everybody, including United, thinks. How would you think it shaped current risk management policies, and how do you kind of prepare for a disruption or an IT disruption? What adaptations have you guys made in response to that?
Yeah, a lot of it's going back and seeing what worked well, what didn't work well, right? And then what didn't work well, we tried to forecast and change those things that didn't work well and apply it to another scenario, right? And the company always runs stress tests where they're forecasting another major issue or another major crisis, and we try to figure out just ways to mitigate those issues from lessons learned. We implement new strategies, we implement new SOPs, and when the unexpected happens, we action those items. And again, what works well, we'll stick with that.
For sure.
And the things that could have maybe been done a little bit better, we learn from those mistakes, we learn from those actions, and we change the processes to keep from falling into that trap again.
Now, you mentioned that you guys have like a summer readiness plan, right? Because especially down here in Orlando and Florida, everything's just weather-wise just spontaneous, right?
Yeah.
How do you guys prepare for operational disruptions such as weather events, labor strikes, or like IT failures? I know you guys look back at what works, but what's really your process?
It's just implementing appropriate staffing. So we've got to make sure that we have enough reserve coverage for pilots, flight attendants, It's also making sure that we have enough staffing at the crew desk. So when we could enter an IROP situation, in a regular operation situation, and trips start getting broken up, that the crew desk, that there's a manning the crew desk so that they can call the pilots to let them know of their changes to their schedule, and also when pilots have questions, they can reach somebody and not be on hold for hours at a time. Implementing automation to repair schedules. We've got technology now that when schedules fall apart, we've got a system that can rebuild back schedules to get the operation back up and running. So it's just, readiness, again, identifying what hasn't worked well in the past, and then fixing that issue by using technology, using staffing as necessary to make sure that we don't fall into those traps again.
Makes sense. Now, last question and a half.
Okay.
Right. What trends do you think will most affect our industry over the next 5 to 10 years? And what role do you see LCCs or regionals playing in the future aviation market? Because I know you mentioned that one of your routes used to be flown by primarily RJs, but now they're A320s, right? You said
narrow body aircraft.
Narrow body aircraft, right? Do you ever foresee complete merger of both the subsidiaries and the actual mother company in the future?
Personally, I don't see that happening. I think our regionals should remain independent, and that way, it just makes sense to run them independently, have them be good partners, but it makes sense for us to keep our operations separate, just because you can leverage efficiencies that way a little bit better. I think the biggest maybe things that we need to look forward to in the future that might change the industry is just looking ahead at technological advances. I feel strongly that there should always be 2 pilots in the flight deck. I think EASA just ruled recently too that it's too soon to go to single pilot flight deck. It's not to say that they're going to keep on trying, but I still feel that at least 2 pilots in the flight deck is going to be the safest course of action. So those are some of the threats that I see, is just trying to go down to a 1 pilot flight deck, which I hope I never see in my lifetime.
Yeah, same here.
all of us who fly airplanes for a living will always say that having at least 2 pilots in the flight deck is going to be the safest course of action.
Definitely, 100%. Yeah. Cool. Well, that's really all the questions I have for today. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.